So Kanye West just hinted at something that could seriously change how people look at Charlie.
Erika Kirk was Charlie Kirk's handler, probably installed by Israel. I'm not sure, but probably it makes sense. All these Egyptian jets were following her around. I think it was 71 locations.
Erika Kirk has removed the wedding photo of her and Charlie Kirk from Charlie's office. What is happening over there?
So this is where everything starts to get messy real fast. Kanye West just dropped a hint that could completely flip how people look at Charlie Kirk and Erika's relationship, and it's not looking clean at all. According to him, Charlie wasn't just dealing with a rough moment. He reportedly felt stuck, like he couldn't move without things blowing up. It's being described like there was no simple way out, no easy exit, nothing smooth about it. And what makes this hit even harder is the history behind it. Kanye and Charlie go way back, long before Erika was even in the picture. So this isn't just some random voice speaking out. This is someone who already knew Charlie on a deeper level. Behind the scenes, when things were reportedly falling apart, Charlie didn't just stay quiet. He allegedly reached out to someone he trusted, someone who understood him, Kanye. Now it's getting intense because what Kanye is saying lines up almost perfectly with what Candace Owens has been hinting at this whole time, and people are starting to notice that connection.
For example, Erika had insisted she'd never seriously dated anyone before Charlie.
When I lived out here, I was here for 5 years. I never dated here because I saw vicariously through my roommate how terrible it was. Somehow getting drinks was the replacement of having coffee and breakfast. I personally would rather have coffee or brunch with someone than going, I don't drink. I find it unproductive, not because I'm holier than whatever. I just don't operate that way. But I always thought it was very strange how she would go to drinks with one guy and then go to dinner with another. So it goes twofold here.
That's when everything shifted and people began connecting dots like, wait, this might not be a coincidence at all. Now everyone's looking back, realizing there may have been warning signs way earlier than expected, and it raises a serious question. If Charlie really felt that trapped, would things have gone differently if he had walked away sooner? That question alone has the internet going wild right now. And here's the part that really grabs attention. Kanye has said some wild things before, and yeah, people used to brush him off like background noise, but this time it feels different. What he's saying doesn't come off random at all. It sounds like it actually fits into a bigger picture, like pieces slowly clicking together one by one, and now those quiet whispers from before don't feel so easy to ignore anymore. People had already been hinting that behind closed doors, things were way worse than what anyone saw in public. Not just regular relationship stress, but something deeper, more serious, and way more private than people expected. Some were even saying Charlie might have been seriously thinking about divorce, not just as a passing thought, but as a real plan that was starting to take shape. And it didn't stop there. There were claims floating around that he may have started making major moves, like cutting Erika out of his will and looking into securing full custody of his kids at the time.
What you're looking at is a picture of Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, and Kanye West in 2018. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. This has to be like, this picture will go down in history books maybe 20, 30 years from now. This is like seeing Winston Churchill, Franklin D. Roosevelt, like the other guy that I can't say his name. This is just one of the weirdest pictures I've seen. Why is Kanye with Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens? I do not know.
That sounds extreme. Almost hard to believe, right? But those kinds of details are exactly why people are paying closer attention now. But once Kanye stepped in and echoed a similar story, everything shifted fast. Those rumors didn't feel so crazy anymore, not like they did at the start. At first, a lot of people weren't buying it at all. They brushed it off, ignored it, and treated it like just more noise in the mix, nothing worth paying real attention to. It felt like one of those moments that blows up for a second and then fades away like always. Nothing new, nothing serious, just talk. But that didn't last long. Something suddenly popped back up that made everyone pause and really think twice, and that's when things started getting interesting again. Old details began resurfacing, and one of them hit hard. Erika had been saying she'd never seriously dated anyone before Charlie Kirk, but then an old 2018 photo came back into the spotlight. That picture showed her in the same space with Kanye West, Charlie, and Candace Owens, and people immediately started asking questions. Now the situation looked different, and people weren't so quick to dismiss things anymore. That one image had everyone looking closer, trying to figure out what really happened behind the scenes, and whether those earlier claims had more truth to them than anyone first thought. And just like that, everything flipped because that one picture completely changed the angle of the conversation. Suddenly, it wasn't just random people talking from a distance. They had all been moving in the same circles for years, and that detail hit different once people caught on. So when that clicked, the idea that Charlie could have opened up to Kanye didn't sound crazy anymore. It actually started to feel possible, even likely to some who were watching closely and connecting every little detail. Then when people started zooming out, the whole situation began to hit differently piece by piece. More details started coming up that didn't fully line up, and that's where things got even more intense. There were claims floating around that some things Erika had said about her past didn't match what later came out publicly, and that had people questioning everything they thought they knew. And that kind of gap can shake trust fast, no warning at all. For example, she reportedly presented herself as someone with no serious dating history before Charlie, but then photos and clips started circulating that seemed to suggest otherwise, and some of the names being mentioned caught people completely off guard, like Cabot Phillips.
Egyptian planes are following her every move from Egypt. She was Charlie Kirk's handler. If you don't know what a handler is somebody who works for the government and they're assigned to cases.
The name alone had people raising eyebrows, especially since he's seen as someone connected to Charlie's own circle, which made the situation feel even closer to home. Suddenly, people weren't just looking at surface-level claims anymore. They were digging deeper and questioning how much really lined up. Then there's the image she showed, publicly, focused, disciplined, and fully aligned with the values she spoke about. But at the same time, clips online were painting a totally different vibe, showing moments from parties, social scenes, and behavior that didn't match that same version people thought they knew. That contrast had people talking nonstop, trying to figure out which version was real. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get more confusing, another layer got added. There was ongoing chatter about her alleged connections to the Central Intelligence Agency, with people pointing to a viral clip where she appeared in what looked like a polished promotional style segment tied to the agency. That wasn't something anyone saw coming at all. And when you mix all of that together, the past claims, the resurfaced photos, and now these unexpected connections, the whole situation starts to feel way more complicated than it first looked. At that point, it didn't even feel like simple gossip anymore. It started feeling deep, layered, and honestly hard to ignore. The more pieces people looked at, the more complicated everything became. When you stack it all together, you can start to see why some believe Charlie Kirk may have felt like the person he married wasn't exactly who he thought she was. And if he really started questioning everything, that shifts the entire energy of the situation. That kind of pressure could explain why he reportedly felt overwhelmed, like he got pulled into something way more complicated than he ever expected. Not just a normal relationship struggle, but something heavier that kept building behind the scenes. Then comes what many people believe was the real breaking point, the reported confrontation between Charlie and Erika just one day before everything changed. Once people started digging into the timeline, that night didn't look calm or normal at all. And that detail alone has people questioning what really went down behind closed doors. It looked tense, no way around it. According to Erika's own version, Charlie chose to sleep in their toddler's room the night before leaving for his speaking event at Utah Valley University, the same trip that would end up being his last. She explained it like he just wanted a good night's sleep before an early morning. Simple, right? But a lot of people weren't convinced at all. Situations like that don't usually happen without a reason, and that one detail had people questioning everything. It didn't feel like a small, random choice. It felt like something was off behind the scenes. If comfort was really the goal, then why leave the main bedroom and go sleep in a child's room instead? That question kept coming up again and again, and it didn't sit right with many people watching closely. To them, it hinted that there might have been more going on that night than what was being explained. But what happened the next morning made everything feel even more off.
5 major threats that make our grid extremely vulnerable that we've presented to congressional officials. 1 being cyber, 2 being hackers, 3 being physical threat.
Erika said Charlie didn't give her a hug, didn't give her a goodbye kiss, nothing at all. Instead, he briefly came in just to grab his neck chain and his wedding ring, which he had taken off the night before, and then he walked out. That moment felt cold, distant, and completely out of character, at least to people who were following closely. And that's when the questions really started stacking up fast, because it didn't look like a normal goodbye in any way. Why take off the wedding ring in the first place? And why come back only to grab it without any warmth at all? No connection, no emotion, nothing that looked like a typical pre-trip moment. To a lot of people, it didn't feel routine. It felt like the aftermath of something serious, the kind of argument that drains both people and leaves everything feeling disconnected. Then, the moment Kanye West spoke out, everything started clicking for some viewers. Details that once seemed random suddenly began lining up like pieces of a puzzle. The separate rooms, the cold goodbye, the rumors of tension, it all stopped looking like coincidence and started feeling like something bigger might have been happening behind closed doors. That shift in perspective is exactly why this situation has people watching so closely now, because once those details line up, it changes how every moment is interpreted. And once people started seeing it that way, the whole conversation flipped fast. What began as light speculation quickly turned into serious suspicion, especially when they looked at what happened next.
I'm there thinking it's a business interview.
It started that way.
Right. So we sit down and you grill me for 3 hours? And he just sat there and he looked at me and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to hire you. I was like, that's fine. I don't need this job. I'm doing plenty of other things here in Manhattan. He's like, I'm going to date you.
Not long after Charlie Kirk passed, Erika stepped into a major leadership role at Turning Point USA, and it happened quickly, almost instantly. At the same time, she was out there speaking publicly, placing herself right at the center of everything. That sudden shift caught a lot of people off guard, and what really added to the conversation was how confident and forward-moving she seemed during that period. For some watching, it didn't match what they expected to see at all. Instead, it looked like she was already focused on stepping into power, expanding her influence, and moving ahead without hesitation. To some observers, it felt like she transitioned into a completely new role overnight, and that perception only added more intensity to the questions people were already asking. That perception spread fast online. People started saying it felt like a sharp switch, going from a grieving partner to a leadership figure with barely any pause in between. And when you combine that with what Kanye was claiming, the entire story starts to feel completely different, almost like there's more beneath the surface than anyone first realized. Instead of a stable relationship suddenly shaken by events, some began wondering if there had been deeper issues all along. Things quietly building up over time until everything finally came to the surface in one intense moment. That idea alone had people looking back at every detail with a completely different mindset. Then comes the part that really pushed this to another level. The idea that Erika may have had a more calculated role in Charlie's life started spreading, especially after Kanye spoke out. A whole new wave of theories took over online discussions, with people throwing out questions that added even more tension to the situation. Some even started asking if she could have been placed in his life for a reason, like someone influencing things quietly behind the scenes.
I will never forget the time I was in Israel with my husband, that was the second time, but the first time with my mother on a pilgrimage. And I was standing in the ticket line, and I remember looking behind me, and in the snake of the ticket line was a guy who looked very familiar. I had no idea who he was. And I told my mom, this guy looks so familiar. And as a typical mother, she said, go and say hi. No, we were late for our flight, and I'm not going to come off like a crazy person that's just weird. That ended up being Charlie.
As Charlie's influence kept growing, that theory gained attention, especially from those already questioning the timeline and the inconsistencies. And one thing that keeps that theory alive is the confusion around how Erika and Charlie supposedly even met in the first place. The details around that have stayed unclear over time, and that lack of clarity has only kept people talking and digging for more answers. Things only got more confusing from there. Erika shared multiple versions of how she and Charlie Kirk first met, and each version told the story a little differently. Not completely opposite, but just different enough to make people pause and really start paying attention. In one version, she said that Tyler Bowyer, someone she described as a family friend, introduced them during the opening of Turning Point USA headquarters. Sounds simple, right? But once other versions started circulating, that's when the confusion hit hard, because now it wasn't just one clear story anymore. It turned into multiple versions, each one slightly off, each one raising new questions. And when details don't fully match up, people notice fast. The more people dug into it, the more inconsistencies they felt like they were seeing. And that only made the situation feel more complicated.
We had met through a family friend. He had invited me to the office opening.
It wasn't just a small difference here or there either. It was enough to make people start questioning what the real story actually is and which version, if any, lines up with the truth. That kind of uncertainty kept the conversation going non-stop. Then, in another version, Erika reportedly suggested their connection didn't just come from a quick introduction at an event. Instead, she hinted that it developed more directly through shared circles and aligned interests, which added yet another layer for people to try and figure out. That sounds normal on the surface, nothing unusual at first glance. But when you line it up next to the first version, it creates a gap that's hard to ignore. And that gap is exactly what people keep focusing on, because even a small shift in the timeline can raise bigger questions. When details don't match perfectly, people start wondering what else might not be fully clear, and that's where the tension builds. It's not just about how they met anymore, it's about whether the full story is being told, and that uncertainty keeps people watching closely. In situations like this, where emotions, influence, and public attention are all mixed together, even the smallest detail can start to feel huge. And once people lock onto something like that, it's hard to let go. It just keeps building and pulling more attention in. Now add that to everything else already being talked about, the alleged tension, the distance people think they noticed, and the sudden changes after everything happened. You can start to see why this conversation hasn't slowed down at all. It's not just one thing anymore. It's the full picture coming together piece by piece, turning into something that feels bigger and harder to ignore with every new detail. And then there's the timing, because timing changes everything. The closer people looked at when certain events happened, when statements were made, and when major shifts took place, the more it started to feel like things weren't just random at all. That's when even more questions started coming up. Some even pointed out how quickly Erika seemed to step into a whole new level of visibility and authority. To some watching, that fast shift didn't feel ordinary, and it only added more intensity to a situation that was already full of questions. Now, on its own, that doesn't prove anything, but when you stack it on top of everything else, it becomes another detail people can't ignore. From the outside, it looked like there was barely any pause between one chapter ending and another one beginning. And that kind of fast transition naturally grabs attention and keeps people watching closely. Most people expect a slower process in situations like this. Time to step back, process everything, and regroup before making big moves. But what they saw instead felt fast, structured, almost calculated, and that alone had people talking non-stop. At the same time, not everyone sees it as a red flag. Some supporters argue that stepping up quickly can actually show strength, especially in high-pressure moments where hesitation isn't an option. They see it as someone choosing to move forward instead of staying stuck, and that perspective is just as loud in the conversation. That's exactly why everything feels so divided right now. One side sees speed and control, while the other sees resilience and leadership. The same actions, but completely different interpretations depending on who's watching. But no matter which side people land on, one thing is clear. The attention on this situation isn't slowing down at all, and every new detail just keeps pulling more eyes into the story. If anything, it's getting bigger. Every clip, every resurfaced moment, every old photo adds another layer that people are trying to figure out, and it just keeps building more attention around the whole situation. And then there's Kanye West, because his role in all of this stands out in a major way, whether people agree with him or not. His connection to Charlie Kirk gives his words a different kind of weight. He's not just some random voice online. He moved in the same circles, the same environment, around the same people, and that's exactly why what he said didn't just fade away after a day or two. It stuck. And people started asking themselves something bigger. If there's even a chance Charlie confided in him, then how much of this could go deeper than what's been seen publicly? That question alone has kept the conversation alive and growing, with more people trying to connect the dots and make sense of everything. Conversations? And once that question enters the chat, everything shifts fast. Now people aren't just reacting to rumors anymore. They're trying to connect dots. And those dots keep leading back to one core idea, that there may have been way more happening behind the scenes than anyone realized at the time. Another thing pushing this even further is how quickly narratives form when information is incomplete. When there are gaps, people naturally try to fill them, and sometimes those gaps get filled with assumptions that spread way faster than actual facts. That's exactly what seems to be happening here, and it's making everything feel even more intense. Without clear and consistent answers, every small detail starts carrying way more weight than it normally would. A look, a moment, a slight shift in the timeline. Suddenly it all matters in a bigger way. And the longer those questions stay unanswered, the stronger these narratives become. Because silence in situations like this doesn't calm things down at all. It does the opposite. It creates space for interpretation, more room for speculation, and more reasons for people to keep digging deeper into every little detail they can find. That's why this situation keeps growing instead of fading away. Now step back and look at the full picture. You've got early whispers about tension, claims about inconsistencies, a timeline that raises eyebrows, a sudden shift in roles, and a high-profile figure like Kanye stepping in with statements that seem to line up with what others have been hinting at. When all of that comes together, it creates a story that people can't stop watching. When you really step back and look at everything, each detail on its own might not seem huge, but together it builds a story that feels layered, complicated, and honestly hard to ignore. That's exactly why this conversation refuses to slow down and keeps pulling more people in. It's not staying still for a second. Every new clip, every resurfaced moment, every reaction keeps pushing things forward, adding more energy to an already intense situation. And at the same time, let's be real. Not everything being said has been confirmed. A lot of this is based on interpretation, on how people are reading the situation from the outside, but that hasn't slowed anything down at all. If anything, it's made people even more locked in. Because when there's uncertainty, attention goes up. And right now, this situation has a lot of attention on it. People aren't just watching casually anymore, they're watching closely, waiting for new details, new angles, anything that might finally bring some clarity to everything that's been building. Because now it's not just about one moment or one claim, it's about the full picture coming together piece by piece. And until clearer answers show up, the questions, the speculation, and the constant attention aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And the real question is, will that picture ever fully come into focus? Because just when things seemed complicated enough, it got even messier. Another version of the story popped up and completely shifted the narrative again, adding more confusion to an already tangled situation. In one interview, Erika claimed she first met Charlie Kirk while visiting Israel with her mother. Sounds straightforward at first, right? But that wasn't the only version, and that's where things started getting attention again. In another telling, she said their first meeting happened during what was supposed to be a job interview that somehow turned into a date. Just like that, now there are multiple versions floating around, each one slightly different, each one raising even more questions. And once people started noticing those overlapping timelines, things escalated fast because it didn't feel like a small mix-up anymore. When origin stories don't match up, people start asking questions immediately. What's the real version? Which one actually happened? Now, instead of one clear story, there are several. And that alone has been enough to keep speculation alive and growing. To a lot of people watching, it no longer feels like a simple, spontaneous connection. It feels layered, unclear, and full of details that don't quite line up. And that's exactly why the conversation just keeps getting louder. It starts to feel like something that may have had layers from the very beginning. And when you add Kanye West into the mix, everything gets amplified even more. Now, those differences in her story don't just look like small inconsistencies, they start to feel like pieces of a much bigger puzzle that people are trying to solve in real time. So the same question keeps coming back again and again. If the stories don't fully line up, and if Erika was already moving in those same circles before Charlie, was her presence in his life just a coincidence? Or was it something more intentional? That question alone keeps people locked in and paying close attention. It doesn't go anywhere either. It just hangs there, unanswered, building more curiosity and more speculation as time goes on. And as long as those gaps remain, people are going to keep digging, trying to figure out what really connects all these pieces together. Every single detail people can find is being pulled into this, and it just keeps building. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think about all these different versions of how they met? Do you think it was all just coincidence? Or does it feel like there's more to the story that hasn't fully come out yet? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let it be known, because this conversation is only getting louder. And if you made it this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone else who's been following this situation closely. More eyes means more opinions, and right now, everyone's trying to figure this out. Stay tuned, because this story keeps unfolding, and there's always another detail right around the corner.